The myth of Atalanta. The maiden Atalanta was resolved to live unwed. And at last, she devised a plan to be rid of all her suitors. She was known far and wide as the swiftest runner of her time, and so she said that she would only marry that man who could outstrip her in the race, but that all who dared to try and failed must be put to death. This threat did not dishearten all of the suitors, however, and to her grief, for she was not cruel. They held her to her promise. On a certain day, the few bold men who were to try their fortune made ready and chose young Hippomenes as judge. He sat watching them before the word was given, and sadly wondered that any brave man should risk his life merely to win a bride. But when Atalanta stood ready for the contest, he was amazed by her beauty. She looked like Hebe, goddess of young health, who is a glad serving maiden to the gods when they sit at feast. The signal was given, and as she and the suitors darted away, flight made her more enchanting than ever. Just as the wind brings sparkles to the water and laughter to the trees, haste fanned her loveliness to a glow. The last suitors, she ran as if Hermes had lent her his winged sandals. The young men, skilled as they were, grew heavy with weariness and despair. For all their efforts, they seemed to lag like ships in a calm, while Atalanta flew before them in some favoring breeze and reached the goal. To the sorrow of all onlookers, the suitors were led away, but the judge himself, Hippomenes, rose and begged leave to try his fortune. As Atalanta listened and looked at him, her heart was filled with pity, and she would willingly have let him win the race to save him from defeat and death, for he was comely and younger than the others. But her friends urged her to rest and make ready, and she consented with an unwilling heart. Meanwhile, Hippomenes prayed within himself to Venus, "Goddess of love, give ear and send me good speed. Let me be swift to win as I have been swift to love her." Now Venus, who was not far off, for she had already moved the heart of Hippomenes to love, came to his side invisibly, slipped into his hand 3 wondrous golden apples, and whispered a word of counsel in his ear. The signal was given. Youth and maidens started over the course. They went so like the wind that they did not have a footprint. The people cheered on Hippomenes, eager that such valor should win. But the course was long, and soon fatigue seemed to clutch at his throat. The light shook before his eyes, and, even as he pressed on, the maiden passed him by. At that instant, Hippomenes tossed ahead one of the golden apples. The rolling bright thing caught Atalanta's eye, and full of wonder she stooped to pick it up. Hippomenes ran on. As he heard the flutter of her tunic close behind him, he flung aside another golden apple, and another moment was lost to the girl. Who could pass by such a marvel? The goal was near and Hippomenes was ahead, but once again Atalanta caught up with him, and they sped side by side like 2 dragonflies. For an instant his heart failed him, then, with a last prayer to Venus, he flung down the last apple. The maiden glanced at it, wavered, and would have left it where it had fallen, had not Venus turned her head for a second and given her a sudden wish to possess it. Against her will, she turned to pick up the golden apple, and Hippomenes touched the goal. So he won that perilous maiden, and as for Atalanta, she was glad to marry such a valorous man. By this time she understood so well what it was like to be pursued, that she had lost a little of her pleasure in hunting,